Hello and welcome to our 50th Help Save Our World Speak online speakers meeting, where we are changing the conversation to change our world. I'm Dennis, the teacher of this quest for the truth, change and transformation. Today, we're moving on to physics, sciences, and technology. So let's start with our introductions. Could you please begin, Curt?
I can do that, sure. So, Curt, in Hollywood, Florida these days, and just thinking back over the week where some amazing things have happened just in seeing progress along sustainability and groups and organizations pushing for that and making themselves more vocal. And at the same time, seeing governments cracking down and doing stupid things again. So it's just another day in paradise where we get to try to keep it as paradise.
Wonderful. Alex?
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm here in South Africa, and I'm trying to work towards setting up eco-villages and changing the conversation to a more sustainable future for us all.
Wonderful. Brendan?
Hi, I'm Brendan. I'm just working hand in hand with both Alex and Dennis in order to help achieve, well, I would say their goals, but the goals for mankind, actually, to help create a sustainable eco-village that they can not only live off, but provide for others with, as well as create a Help Save Our World project that everybody can join in on and make a better future for the young ones later.
Excellent. Well done, Brendan. All right, so here we go. This, as we have previously, we did a whole section on thought, which covered a lot of the principles of religion. And then we did a brief thing on religion, which, it's a huge thing as well, that we could go into. And of course, there was a big section on education, which is another huge section, which we can go on to later. But right now, we're looking at physics and the sciences. Physics, a brief look at the historical development of physics and the sciences, their belief systems, and the effects these beliefs have on our society. Technological development can be seen everywhere, from the simple to the superhuman feats that have happened throughout history, beginning from sharpened stones to knives to swords, bows and arrows, to guns, to cannons, to nuclear bombs. We see the advances of the war machines and the military-industrial complexes all around the world, and the acts of war around the world. We see it in industrialized society, technological society, and many more fields of technological development. We see it in industrialized agriculture, in space exploration, then in everyday life. Technology is pervasive. It's everywhere around us. In cell phones and computers and TVs and in our toys, our tools and technological devices are everywhere and have replaced our human life skills and lulled us into existing as unconscious servants of our tools. Imagine if we used those abilities to regreen, reforest, and rewild our planet, and decentralize and reintegrate our lives with nature using natural agriculture, polyculture, and permaculture to create or regrow a sustainable future. Just imagine what we could achieve. The very few who control the strings of our society now control us through and with that technology. We are on a constant treadmill, chasing higher and higher education and more specialized education, having to work longer and harder to get more money, to get the latest and the best technologies and programs, and then we're having to learn them, and it's absolutely taken over our lives, just trying to function within them. It's out of control. We've been conditioned to believe that we cannot exist without technology. If you cannot or will not keep up with the latest technology, you'll be left behind. Within the societal construct that has been, of course, manufactured for you, that may be true within this abstract construct. However, life does not require technology, as we can see throughout natural history with all living other forms of wild animals. They don't need technology, and they live. This reminds me of the huge fields of towers, batteries of human pods, or cells of human energy sources in the film The Matrix. Unconscious humans existing their whole lives in their bubbles, believing the program of an unnatural, unsustainable world, oblivious to the fact that they never truly lived their lives in the real world. Then the change facilitator, Morpheus, to morph is to change state of being, suggests it's time to choose to remain asleep or to wake up. Morpheus offers Neo the red pill or the blue pill, symbols of the choice to change or not to change, to live or to exist. Morpheus, you take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed, believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Neo chooses the red pill and joins the revolution or the rebellion. I see this as you choose to take the blue pill and you remain ignorant to the truth. Stay in your bubble world, stay unaware, uninformed and unconscious in our civilization's pyramid scheme, abstract matrix that is killing our natural world and driving extinction. Or you take the red pill, you join this conversation, you question everything and uncover the truth, then deal with reality as it is, become more aware, more conscious, enlightened and wise, so you can make the informed choices that you need to become a master of your own life and begin to grow a better future for yourself and all life on this planet. Living your life with empathy, compassion, consideration for all life, past, present, and future, caring for nature and all its ecosystems on Gaia, Mother Earth, Pachamama. How deep down the rabbit hole are you willing to go? How many different tunnels are we willing to follow on our quest for the truth? Are we willing to go beyond the superficial, his story, timeline told by science and physics? Are we willing to go beyond the depths of the subatomic theories, beyond the nature of our perceived physical reality, into the non-physical and the universal, to consciousness and wisdom? How deep are you willing and able to go? The limits of our perception are suggested, schooled, and indoctrinated into us, and only accepted by us if we aren't willing to go there. Are you willing to go there with me as your guide? The in-depth theories of sciences and physics are already written and available in many scientific papers and books all over the internet and in many books all around the world. Each theory has its own foundational thoughts, ideas, values and beliefs, and biases. However, they all have to fall under the fundamental values and beliefs of the umbrella of physics and the sciences, prescriptive values and beliefs. Then, under the values and beliefs of the specific field of study. Then, under the fundamental thoughts of the actual theory itself. If any of those principles or thought predispositions or fundamental values and beliefs is untrue to nature, then the next level is incorrect. Some examples are science itself is a limited belief system. Fields of study: cosmology, geology, archaeology, anthropology, psychology, ology, sociology, physics, quantum mechanics, and particle theories, wave theories, string theories, Big Bang theory. The scientific premise is they will follow one theory until it is proven incorrect, and then they will search for another, always looking for the natural truth. However, this is not always the case when it does not serve the institution of power, of the sciences, or those of other institutions of power, and specifically religions. The subjective nature of a lot of the biases in the sciences is made clear in layman's terms in the book I suggested as essential reading, The Dancing Woolly Masters by Gary Zukov. It's a brilliant take on it. So if you really want to see what I see to a large degree, I would really do that reading. I just want to make it clear here that I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's an enormous amount of good done by scientific research and reasoning, and many great minds, thinkers, and scientific workers who have provided us with incredible insights about our world and about the nature of the universe. But there's still something wrong with the belief system. And that's what we have to uncover. The why it has been used for such good, and yet it has been such a destructive tool. You know, I get this feeling when I look at the sciences or I listen to a new scientific theory that it's always behind the curveball. It's like we know something, and then it takes maybe sometimes even years for science to actually catch up with us. Well, maybe that's because they have to now go and prove it, and that is quite an arduous thing to be able to do sometimes. Whatever the reason, I also think it's not just that reason, but there are other limiting factors. I also want to say technology comes at great expense to life and nature, and this should always be brought into consideration if we wish to help save our world. All right, does anybody want to say anything at this point? Curt?
No, I'm good, Dennis. I'm following along.
Oh, good. Alex, Brendan?
Nothing from me.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think it's important to remember that science is not I can't even say a religion. It's not a fundamental belief system. It is only a tool, something that we use to, get a job done. If we use it as a tool, then essentially, we are using it for the right reasons. well, to a large degree. But as soon as we make it a fundamental belief system, I think that's where we're going wrong.
All right. That's an interesting observation. Curt, Karen?
I love that. And as you said it, I'm saying, and neither is religion. So what if we looked at religion as the same way that you just described science? It's a tool to accomplish something, which maybe will lead us into the next thing. Unfortunately, it's become a tool to lead us into a dead end. But what if we looked at that as and I think we're seeing that, where spirituality and science seem to be finding an alignment point the more we search for meaning. And I think both of them have that I would say opportunity. Both of that have that as somewhat of an end game. I think where we get into trouble is where we hold anything that's developed from either pursuit as truth. That's when we get into trouble with both science and religion.
It's interesting. I have my own opinions, and I'm sure you'll hear them as I progress. But I think, yes, the values and there's so many aspects. It's like, first of all, what is the vision of the religion? What is the purpose and vision of science? What is it trying to achieve? And what are its prescriptive parameters? And what are its values and beliefs to achieve what it's trying to say it's trying to achieve? So I think those are really important things. And, you know, when we say religion, are we not saying institution? Because whatever the belief system is and whatever the values and beliefs, it becomes an institution. And even science, you know, you get the extreme guys out there who are like, science is their religion. I believe in science. Science will save us, you know, and it's like, no, it won't save you. What will save you is your behavior, you know. It's like, and then you get mathematicians who are like, maths is the language of the universe, you know. It's like, really, dude? You think everyone thinks like you? So yeah, there's lots of variables. So we'll get into that. I think that's a wonderful start from both of you. Thank you.
Actually, if I can just make one little more comment on that, Dennis.
Yeah.
Well, let me get back to it. You were touching on it, whereas as institutions and how science can drive religion and vice versa. And yeah, I think that's happened. I mean, you know, or we know at least from history books, maybe not personal experience, that there were a number of flat earthers until Kepler and Copernicus and a couple of other people said, you might want to rethink the way we've been looking at it for the past eons. And every decade, and sometimes now every year, we come up with a new theory about the universe and how it's growing and how it expands, and you know, whether it's a fractal of everything. So as we start to see these things, and of course that informs then how people view the world, the heliocentric and the human centric, and you know, that maybe that's not anything. So I agree with you. I think that the science and new discoveries can and have changed the way society and people understand, from fire to the wheel to the microchip. All of these things have impacted the way society and beliefs about the world occur. And certainly with the advent of the technology of the 20th century, and now even more so into the 21st century, we're just seeing how the tools of science have been able to open up incredible new areas of thought, whether it be religion or cosmology or spirituality, or just the human body. And as we're seeing now, the use of those things are to change people genetically while you sit in your chair. So how we look at what is real, what is the world, certainly is informed by technology, if not impacted by technology, if not damaged by technology, depending on your perspective. So yeah, I think this topic of technology and science and physics and how it relates to how we relate to our world and our universe, extremely important. Wouldn't it be nice if the majority of human beings actually had these conversations on a regular basis to understand themselves and how they're operating and how their society's operating?
Historically, the technological development of simple tools by humans, sticks, stones, pottery, implements, was accelerated and enhanced by fire or the use of energy. But where all of these ideas originated and the developments happened, and where it became part of our collective consciousness and then spread across the world, we do not have a precise timeline. Some people have been attributed with having discovered certain things, with being the first to publish into the world in the historical development of the belief system as proof that they were first. That is a subjective choice. Ideas come from the conscious universe and from conversations with people and many different thoughts combining and dream thoughts as I have. It's all complex processes within the universal and human ecosystems. Where we are now as unconscious slaves to our technology and the most extremely destructive and warring human civilization that's ever existed deserves some consideration before it's too late. We can do our best by questioning everything and bringing the following principles into our conscious thoughts and conversations, reevaluate them, rethink, and change them. We need an age where technology is used for the benefit of life and nature, an age where we move towards a simple, natural way of life with simple tools, where we maintain our physical health, strength, fitness, and sanity while living as one with nature in the natural world, living, truly living. We need to stop living in fear and come together and regrow our relationships. I was talking to a group of guys the other day about making this transition, and they just kept on saying, I'm too scared. I'm terrified to like basically trust in everyone around me, and that I have to fight for our survival. We live in South Africa on the edge, but you only live on the edge because you're not working together. You're so busy fighting to one up each other that life is difficult if you do that. Living sustainably as whole tribes, human ecosystems, all living as one with the natural ecosystems and with a singular purpose to create a better life. We must learn life is not about competing with one another. It is about cooperation. Cooperation is like, it's like this, you live in this biodiverse ecosystem, in this incredible forest, and each component of the ecosystem is contributing towards the success and sustainability of the system. And that is where sustainability and longevity comes from. Fighting with one another is definitely not the way. Last week I said the main pillars of the development of civilizations are religion, security, which is different types of security systems of force and power, labor, and then capital and technology. Now, religions are the human mind and behavior control systems that are based on a particular vision and a purpose with a fundamental set of values and beliefs. They're also based on the suggestion that you can only achieve the afterlife and an ethereal relationship with a God, through the belief in and following that religion. And of course, those religions are made by men just to keep the power and control over men. Anyway, security began with individual protectors of the grain. You can imagine like somebody saying, oh, this is my piece of land. And then they go and they harvest and they store their grain, and their grain starts to get stolen. So they get somebody to guard their grain. Those guards of the grains, of course, developed into gangs and then into governments and into armies and into empires with invading armies. And of course, labor became many forms of consensual, to paid, to slavery, to hourly wage slaves. And then, of course, capital, money. Capital could have been any form of currency, whether it was living, livestock, and then into all different forms of currency, and then money itself. From natural systems to abstract money to digits on a screen. The lack of money, this is just an interesting factoid, just the lack of money acts more as a system of oppression and suppression of human creativity and potential, and it suppresses the majority's potential rather than the enhancement of everyone's potential. So it's really an interesting backslap of money, you know. If you've got it, you can do amazing things. And if you haven't, you can't do anything in the technological society. That's interesting. So technology and the natural sciences became the sciences and physics. And a lot of technological development was based on the war machines and so on. And somewhere along the developmental journey, physics became the foundations of all of the sciences, because, you know, if you go right down into the smallest of small, the subatomic realm, then literally, and you now have a theory of all of this, then everything that comes after that is affected by those fundamental theories. Now, if they're right or wrong, you're still affected by them. Hello, Lorna.
Good morning.
Good morning. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Really interrupting you? I'm just Lorna from South Florida. I'm very grateful to be here to co-create with great people.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So now, this brings us to the values and beliefs of physics and the sciences. So it's extremely important to know the problems and the limitations of scientific reasoning, especially with its objective, materialistic world and universal view, and the basic assumptions of that view, and the lack of humanity, human feelings, emotions, perspective, subjective understanding, empathy, and understanding the nature of the human experience. A lot of our worldview is affected by this impartial, pragmatic, scientific, objective, materialism, disintegration, reductionism, mathematical perspective of the world. I understand it was an attempt to bring rational thinking to the irrational, religion-dominated worldview of the time. But its reasoning has irrational limits, abstract ideas, biased reasoning, and generalizations, all of which lead to an unnatural worldview. Mathematics is not the universal language. That's the mathematician's ego speaking. We do not live in a perfect mechanized universe of moving parts as expounded by Newton in his objective materialistic theories, which are collectively called Newtonian physics. You know, he does a brilliant job of determining the relationships of how bodies interact with one another, momentum and gravity, and the force of gravity in relation to two bodies, like, say, for example, the sun and the earth. And it's basically this relationship that two bodies have with one another. And it's super interesting. You can see it in the planetary movements and so on. and you can see it in, you can stand on a building and take an object that weighs a certain amount and drop it off the building. And you'll find that as a very high building, as it goes down, it'll move in towards the building and hit the side of the building and bounce off, and then come in again and hit it again, depending on how high and what the masses are. So the mass of the building and the mass of the object, they tend to pull one another together. So, and he proves this scientifically, which is wonderful. So it's like momentum and centrifugal force and all of these things. He proves all these relationships, which is wonderful. If you're looking at the world and everything in it as objects. But if you start to realize that we don't live in that, ultimately in that world, that we live in an energy world, then because of course he's not able to explain gravity. And of course, Einstein with special relativity starts to talk about the curvature of space and all of that sort of thing. And then he sort of has some explanation of the relationship between bodies. So Newtonian physics, I don't want to go too far into the details. While that way of thinking can be useful to mechanics, to watchmakers, engineers, physicists, cosmologists, and NASA scientists, it is not the fundamental nature of the essence of our reality, and thus is misleading to our human understanding of who and what we are, and our place within all of this. Religions dominated throughout the Dark Ages. Then the logical reasoning of the sciences gained favor with the people, and the religions agreed to compromise. Science was given the dominion over the material physical world, while religion could maintain control over the ethereal spiritual world. This was like a political power compromise so that they were able to function as independent power-based institutions. This compromise worked until some scientists began to study the subatomic realm and realized that like when they got down there, that realm was non-physical. It was mainly space, and then it was these vibrations of energy and spinning at the speed of light in that space. So there are two basic premises called like the duality of light and the duality of that subatomic realm, the particle wave duality. These realizations resulted in an impasse between science and religion. Now, all of a sudden, science was venturing into the ethereal spiritual realm. And of course, they called it energy and they called it vibrations, but that's now going beyond the physical. So that became a place where they were heading into conflict with the religion. I'm not suggesting that sciences were not influenced by religious physicists who were out to prove that their religion and science were both right. You can look at Newton, who was a devout Christian, George Lemaître, a Belgian priest who first suggested the Big Bang theory in 1920, when he theorized that the universe began with a single primordial atom, which was taken on with physicists like Stephen Hawking with the brief history of time. Our universal bodies began with a Big Bang, to black holes, to the popular science book on cosmology, this expanding universe sort of radiating out from this Big Bang. Einstein also came from a religious background, and although it doesn't seem to appear in many stages in his belief system, when he goes for particle theories and creates particle physics with Max Planck, then you start to see that bias coming through. And there could be a lot of reasons for that. The creation of physics and the attempt to materialize the subatomic realm and space into particle physics to keep their position in the power structure is a problem. They speak of the particle wave duality of the subatomic realm. There seems to be a very real religious desire to maintain the concept that God created everything once and everything is made of matter, because we have a real big problem in when you start to be honest and realize that creation is happening. And that does not sit well with the religious idea of singular creation. It seems the dominant pillars of power are competing and also working hand in hand to keep their power at no matter what the cost to all of us in our world. The fundamental institutionalized thought is so hard to change because it is tied to the foundational thoughts on which the whole society stands as well. So you have these power influences fighting for power and control, and not also wanting to lose their power. The moment you change those fundamental values and beliefs, you put yourself in a very dangerous situation that you might lose all your power. Okay, so I'm just going to stop there. Anyone want to comment? Lorna?
It says this subject is so, grand, so big, so amazing. I took a lot of notes and tried to relate, what I'm speechless. It's so good. It's so good. All that information. And I know some of it that, the detail that you got into it is amazing. And maybe later in the session, I'll have some comments, but for now, I just want to say that.
All right, cool. Good.
I think I fundamentally agree with the direction you're heading with this. And again, I think that interplay of science and religion and the the battle for power, which is more what it's about than the battle for knowledge. I think it's very relatable to, and certainly what we're seeing these days, and even the manipulation of each of them, and the battle for what's conjecture and what's fact and what's faux reality and what's real reality. Yeah, we're living in that and that same turmoil that's been going on for centuries. So, yeah, as grand as it is, Lorna, it is when we take off certain lenses and glasses. It is what we're in. We're in that mix, and as we expand our willingness to look at trends in life, more than just our own, personal activities and environment, we can start to see these things. And again, how we impact them is always our choice. So we take the knowledge, we process it, and then we do with it what we can.
I love that. There's so many levels of that power play. I mean, you've got disinformation, which is like whatever, and then you've got marginalization of guys who've got like really great stuff that they're trying to share. And then, of course, guys who are promoting things that maybe are dubious, that suit the power base, they're getting pushed through. And then you're getting the people who own the scientists with the money that they support certain sciences against others. And if you're not going to give them a financial benefit out of your research, well, then we're not going to fund you, So there's so much power play happening all the time. And then you get guys who are brilliant and they come up with amazing stuff and they just marginalize. It's like the guy's maybe not very good at communicating, but he has this incredible theory, but it never reaches the people, never gets out there. And of course, media is controlled, and you hear like, oh, the God principle, they've discovered this new God particle, in the subatomic realm. And this gets like so much airtime when it's just a nonsense concept, but it sounds good. So let's just push that because we'll get a lot of media coverage. And, it's just like, oh my gosh. But anyway, it's interesting. So science can be helpful as a tool, but it should only be seen as a tool. It is important to realize that when you ignore the fundamental truth and when your tools become your masters, you lose your humanity. Where your tools can be used for good and for bad and anything in between, we can use our tools as extraction systems. Now, extraction systems are like huge machinery, like digging away canyons as mines and building big dams to be able to extract the water as like one thing, and then money to be able to go and chop down forests and gather all that wealth and all the roads and bridges and everything to be able to extract the wealth. Science and technology has been used for those extraction systems, for the accumulation of wealth and power, and of course, the destruction of our lives and our world. Because as the balances of nature and the ecosystems die, we are dying too. And it's usually done for the benefit of the wealth and the power of a few in relation to, and you know, it's difficult for Americans to understand. They think America's the greatest place on earth and whatever, but they don't see at what expense that is to Guatemala and South Africa and all of these places around the world who have been plundered to accumulate that wealth into that country, to now make it possible for the people to live there in a higher quality of life. And all of the political systems, the economic systems and so on. So what is like so easy in America to do, like if I want to do engineering or whatever, I can just quickly go and buy tools and have this incredible engineering company in no time, and I can quickly acquire the money that I need to do it. And I try and do that here, and it takes 20 years. It might take like 3 months or 6 months in America, but that only comes at the expense of the rest of the world. Or we can use our tools to reclaim semi-desert regions, desert regions, create swales, which are ditches on contour where we grow all sorts of living systems, and gabions. Like, can you imagine if we put like down this bottom of this Grand Canyon, if we started to put rock formations in cages and spread out the soil that comes rushing down the Grand Canyon, we could start growing all sorts of life all the way downstream, instead of creating one dam. And at least with the gabion, it slows the sand drops, and then the water carries on. So sedimentation. So what we could do to reestablish the natural balances necessary for continuing our life and existence. However, more often than not, humans have been using them for death and destruction. Of course, deforestation, mining, agribusiness, damming, wars. We should know that the whole is more than the sum of the parts. Now, this concept I learned in Gestalt psychology when I was studying to become a teacher many years ago. So science is disintegration. Basically it's like you break things apart to smaller and smaller parts to find out what is the essence of reality. That worldview is also destructive to our perception of the greater whole. This directly affects our thinking and behavior and affects the world we manifest around us. Even the idea of parts or things as separate components is a problem in the movement and the vibrations, the energy and the patterns of flows and that compose the whole ecosystem, life, nature, and the universe. It's ecosystems, it's complexities, and all of that, like living in a forest, it's got all of these living systems all interacting and feeding and helping one another, and the mycelium and everything. It's a community. Whereas if you're breaking things into units, you have disintegrated it into things, and the things don't come anywhere near the whole. Objective materialism is destructive to our understanding because we live in a connected, vibrating energy, changing reality. Objectivism and reductionism are destructive to our relationships, and our consideration for all life and empathy. If we see things as objects, like it's like, that's a tree. It has volume, it has mass, I can cut it and turn it into planks and tables and chairs. It's like an object. I can like break it up and make things out of it. So that loses our empathy, our connection. Why and how? Because it is fundamentally untrue. We are human beings, being composed of the universe within the universe. We are being composed of nature, of the nature of the planet and its environment, its ecosystems within it. We are vibrations, energy, gravity, love, magnetism, flow, living, moving, changing patterns of vibrations and of space. And our reality is the same. It is happening. We are our relationships within the universe, galaxy, solar system, environment, ecosystems, tribes, families. It's all an interwoven magical symphony of movement and change. And we get to be here and live it. I think that's absolutely mind-blowing. Science, the scientific worldview, does not include the subjective feelings, emotions, caring, sharing, kindness, consideration, empathy in this way. It is very limiting. It's all about facts, physical evidence, proof, quantification, measure, it's this long, length, breadth and height, and volume, how much, mass, how heavy, number, scale, how heavy, time, and the use of mathematics. Each one of these systems is like a separate quantification that takes a certain amount from the whole. It's not this continuous connectivity. Many of which are abstract and subjective forms of quantification. This prevents us from thinking beyond its limited belief system or abstract mental constructs. It's naming and labeling. I think of, first of all, like vitamin B, vitamin C, it's like naming and labeling creates a loss of the connections to the movements, the changing, the processes, the flows, the vibrations of energy, life, nature, and the universe. No wonder we have developed technologies that are killing our natural world and us in the process. We have lost our connection to the true nature of everything. We have lost our humanity, compassion, empathy, caring, sharing, nurturing. We have created a things world view while we live in a changing world of individual uniqueness, flow, process. We label and name and letter, naming processes as unchanging things in a world of change. Those incorrect fundamental beliefs are harming our way of life. We need to live by the truth, knowing the true nature of reality and being one with it all. All right, everyone's welcome to join in and do their thing now. Who would like to join in there? Alex?
Yeah, I just want to say that, yeah, absolutely 100% agree with you. I just wanted to just mention that, I mean, if you look at things like 100 years ago, where a ship out in the ocean would, all its crew would die within a month or two of being out in the ocean. And their teeth would fall out, they would go crazy. And this was, a real problem for hundreds of years until they gave it a name. They called it scurvy. And they found out that eventually that vitamin C, which is contained in, obviously, from fruits and things like that, would actually cure or prevent this scurvy from happening if taken in quantities during the journey. I think our advances in medical, especially medical for me in particular, just because I find it so fascinating, and the advancements that we've learned about the body and the different diseases and so forth that we can accumulate through our lifetimes, and how to prevent them, and how to cure them over that period of time. Yes, also, too much of anything is a bad thing, but I think the advancements we've done throughout the years, and the men and women that have dedicated their lives to that, good on them. I mean, we'd still be sitting with a woman fallen ill in bed and demanding that it's witchcraft and bad omens and all of that, if we hadn't gained some knowledge in these areas. So yeah, just putting it out there. Absolutely good on those people who have advanced that knowledge. But as I said, too much of anything is a bad thing, and we don't need to forget about the whole and the connection that we all have and need to strive together and believe in.
Thank you. The one point that I would just like to add to that is yes, that became what they did is they started growing lemon trees and orange trees is wherever the ships went, the military ships and the merchant ships went around the world, to ensure there was enough vitamin C for the sailors when they got to those particular places. So that was their first step. But then, of course, in our modern chemicalized and way of mass production of pharmaceuticals and that sort of thing, now we can take a vitamin C tablet. But at the moment we do that, we've moved away from what we should be putting in our bodies. We should be eating the lemon, or having lemon in our tea, or eating the orange, or and I think that's where technology, it can be useful if you're in some place where you can't get vitamin D and you can get it in pill form. Yes, okay. But for the majority of people who do have access to fresh fruit and vegetables, that's what they should be eating. So that's the natural way, because there's a lot more than just the vitamin C that you get from an orange. There's calcium, there's all sorts of other things. It's like a combination of health as opposed to just one thing. So yes, anyone else want to input there? Curt, would you like to say anything about the meeting? And then you're welcome to stay or...
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I have just a couple of more minutes. Well, getting back to the topic at hand, and science and religion and technology and all of that. In the 20th century, probably in the early part, Martin Heidegger, the philosopher, a German philosopher, very prolific, and those of you that can read books like this, go for it. But some of his critical ideas, especially as concerns existentialism, which he was aligned with the existentialist thought movement, had to do with what we as human beings tend to do. And one of them is we tend to label, and I think you had brought up that word before. And so we have a need. I don't think it's an absolute necessity, but we just have this tendency to want to compartmentalize, to understand, to label, and then be able to put something somewhere and say, okay, I got it. And then we live out of that belief and don't change it for a long time, because change takes a little extra thought and all the other things that go along with it. So our need to understand and create meaning with our environment, and however large or small we choose to make it, it's kind of a built-in tendency. But one of the things that Heidegger noticed was that when we do that, we no longer allow that thing, whether it's a concept or a person or a material item, to have any further possibility. We've limited it. We just fixed it in time and place and meaning and value right there. And as we do that, of course, we cut off possibility. So in some ways, religion does that. They said, this is what this means, this is what this means, and just live with that the rest of your life and for the rest of history. Where science tends to go about things a little differently. No, let's be in the question, let's ask questions, let's be in discovery. Unfortunately, they get to a point where they say, okay, this is this, and this is that, and this is the way the Earth is, and the cosmos, and the particles, and everything. So it ends up coming back to that same situation that we as humans get to be in, which is be in the question rather than be in the knowledge. Knowledge is helpful in order to get us to the next question. And as long as we look at that as we are in evolving, ever changing, ever developing now, we don't need to hold on to old ideas that we haven't questioned or looked at or thought critically about. And so some of the concepts that you're bringing up, Dennis, are exactly that. Let's look at a lot of the systems that we've lived in that we just bought as truth, or somebody labeled as truth, and we're in that question. Really, okay, that's what, so what, now what? And a lot of us go to that's what and don't go any farther than that. So I think these conversations, these weekly sessions, help to keep the questioning open, even though we're covering a lot of past thought and past trends and ideas and facts. Really what we're doing is setting up the foundation to say, have you thought about it? Have you questioned it? Think on these things and see, does it really make sense to you or not? So again, one of the reasons I attend weekly is to find those gems or those trends that help me continue to do that. And certainly the interaction and contributions of others on the call help stimulate that. So just wanted to end it there. I think for me, not end it. Actually, let me rephrase that. I just wanted to open it up there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, you take subjects like cosmology, it's the study of all of the things in the universe. It's the study of things. And then you go and you have a look at physics, all right? And it's the study of particle physics. It's like looking at everything as an objectified way of looking at it instead of wave physics, because like the particle wave duality of space and so on. And why did they choose to go for physics and stay with physics and subatomic particles and subatomic particle theories? Why did they go that way? They could have just as easily gone for wave. Whether it's the religious organizations' effect, whether it's the sciences don't want to lose their power, because physics originated from ancient Greek philosophy, which I was going to go on to next, but we don't have time for that. But it's the principle is atomos, that if you broke down whatever it is in the world into smaller and smaller and smaller parts, you'd eventually get to indivisible particles, which is atomos in ancient Greek. And that became the atom. So now you've moved from a concept that everything's made of matter and built up in complexity of matter to be whatever it is. And you built a whole institutional of thought, which is physics and sciences and whatever, which is based on this fundamental principle. And you've got religions that are dealing with the ethereal and we're dealing with the physical. And now all of a sudden you start to look in space and now there's nothing physical out there. There is, but the majority of space is not physical. It's literally vibrations of energy traveling in all different directions. And then you get down to the subatomic realm and it's space that's vibrating, It's like, what happened to your premise that everything's based on the physical? It's gone, So do you now dissolve your whole institution and start again? And say now that sciences doesn't work in the realm of things, it works in the realm of the ethereal. It's like, it's a dilemma, So It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating for me. So,
Okay. Well,
anyone
good
else?
questions.
Yeah, amazing.